Hey guys, how you doing? jpsarrireviews here, and welcome again to another episode of Age of Heroes, my podcast. This is episode number 176, if I remember well. But today is a special day for me because I have a special guest, a person that I actually admire a lot. I follow his channel on YouTube, Omar from Near Mint Condition, and he is I would say, a powerhouse right now in YouTube for all the comic book fans because he is the person that you need to go when you need information. He's the person that I like to watch his videos. I love his book reviews. I love all the information he offers. He has the news and definitely is a person that his channel has been growing. But the most important part is that he offers great content. And I definitely am excited that he took my invitation. And he is busy. He has his channel is growing and also he has a family. So I know that time is precious, but he took the time for this conversation, and I'm really glad and I'm excited for this opportunity. Hello, Omar. How are you?
Hey, I'm really good, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate this. And thank you for all the kind words. That really means a lot to me because I'm still, I guess that's the way I've always been. Like I still see myself as a little channel with with all these things that happen, and I'm still trying to make it grow. I guess that's a good way to think, though. Like you be humble and think you're always maybe that's just my mentality, but thank you so much for the kind words is what I was getting at.
Yeah, it's I think one thing I've been, in YouTube, I've been doing stuff on YouTube for like 9 years now,
Yeah.
and I've seen so many different channels, come and go, and channels grow. But one thing I can say about your channel, I started watching your channel, I would say, a few years back when you started doing. I know that you in the beginning you were doing a lot of stuff with other people, other
Oh
people
yeah, my
collaborating, your friends,
mhm,
and you were
yeah.
doing a lot of like round the table conversations about a lot of geeky stuff, which was super cool. But then of course you went into more into the comic book stuff. That's where you've been doing, kind of concentrating lately a lot, and I definitely enjoy your content. And one thing I really love about watching your channel, and I've been following so many different, I follow many channels, but a lot of people they come across as that they care about the comics, but they necessarily know are really as passionate as they claim to be. But one thing
Mhm.
about you when I watch is that I feel that you are the real deal, that you really know the comics, that you care about the comics, that you know the history of the comics, which is important to me, and
Thanks.
you're not biased about things, and I love that, the fact that we are kind of contemporary, around the same age. It means that
Yeah.
we grew up in an era where we grew up in at the end of the Bronze Age into the modern age. So it's like
Mhm.
we. I'm a passionate about a lot of things. I know some people. I know probably you've been. A lot of people. I'm in a lot of Facebook groups, and a lot of people. If you, depending on where you, what part of your, or where you started reading comics, so that what era, that's what you're going to love.
It's the best era ever. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think because we grew up in this time where we were between eras, it's like we love the old stuff, but also we love the new stuff. So
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
open always for comics. I love comics regardless. I don't care where they come from, as long as the story is good, the art is good. I'm okay with that, and I feel that that's something that you always portray in your channel. You're not you love the art. You talk about the art, talk about the stories, and you're all full of information. Now let me ask you this, because I
Sure.
know that it's not an easy thing. It's not like you can just simply grab a book and just read it and you know everything. You know your history, how everything started for you, when everything started for the love of comics for you.
I think it all goes back to my childhood. I grew up in Peru, and down there, we had a magazine called Condorito,
Okay.
and I think it's a Chilean magazine, if I'm not mistaken, but it was a comic strip. Um, but it's funny because going back and looking at it, it's got a lot of adult themes and a lot of adult humor. Like all the women are drawn really, really
Yeah.
thick, and all the guys are just these goofy looking characters. And Condorito himself, he's a condor. But for some reason, like my friends and I would read that stuff, and it was just part of comics. I guess it would be like the equivalent of something here, like Archie comics.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I had appendicitis and I was taken to the emergency room down there, and down there it was a free clinic. It was 1984. I was 6 years old. Um, that I had to wait. Like here, I'm so jealous of all the people that show me their appendix, like their appendix, like their scars. It's like 3 little dots. Mine has this, like, it looks like they gutted me. Like they cut me open, like half of my stomach open.
Uh-huh.
But it was a free children's clinic, so we had to wait like 2 or 3 days because something was going on with quarantine or something. But at that time, my uncle who lives in Miami
Mm-hmm.
had sent me a care package for my birthday, and it arrived there late. And inside of that care package were a bunch of comic books.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that stuck out to me was Uncanny X-Men 168. However, it was all in English, and I didn't read English.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was 6 years old. I was barely reading Spanish.
Spanish, yeah.
So, but I love the pictures. I love the sequence. It was different than the things I was reading at the time, and for some reason, easier to follow the panels because I could tell who was upset, who was yelling at who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still remember these things in my head, like the arguments they had, and then somebody. And this was all Paul Smith who drew that issue, and it wasn't until I came to America a couple of years later that I actually started reading it and rereading it, and it became like one of my favorite issues because that's the beginning of the From the Ashes storyline. So it all started with that. Now there were other comics that he sent me, like I think it was like Spider-Man and Superman, like the Superman 80-page reprints.
Mm-hmm.
There was maybe Wonder Woman, and a couple of other, like, I can't remember, like maybe for kid comics, but that's the one that stuck out to me. I love the artwork, and for some reason I would pretend to read it. I don't know if anybody ever else did that. Like when we some of the cartoons we would get down there, I forgot about this, man. Some of the cartoons we would get down there were only in English. So my brother and I didn't understand anything that was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we would play with toys or pretend to play with toys, we would pretend to be speaking in English. I forgot about that until now. And I would do the same thing with comics. I would pretend to be reading in comics. It just gibberish in my head. I had no idea what the heck I was talking about. But anyway, that kind of is what started everything. And then he would send me more care packages. I was like, I don't care about clothes. I don't care about shirts. I don't care about UK.
Comics.
Like he was, yeah, just send me the chistes. And he was like, okay. I think he would get them from like a newspaper place, like where he would get his newspaper before he go into work. And the guy had them discounted if they were like over a couple months old, because he just needed to change the inventory over. So he gave it to him at a discount. But that's where it all began, man. It was great. Oh, what a great time. And no idea. I mean, I was building the stories in my head. I had no idea where, because he would give me issue 168, and then the next issue I would get would be like 171, something like that. And then there was like a little mini. He got me like Wolverine number 2 or something. But I didn't care. I was just blown away. I love that stuff, and haven't looked back. I mean, I did take a break though, like most people do. Like I was a teenager. I was in high school, and then Onslaught was my breaking point. That I always blame Onslaught. It's not well, it might still be a horrible storyline to some people. It's definitely not the worst, but it's the one that I was like, okay, I think I've outgrown the genre and I need to move on, because I was a senior in high school when that came out. I was already getting classes in college, gonna move away, had a job. I was working at a comic book store of all places. I could have gotten these things at a huge discount. I just didn't care. I was so burned out. I was done with comics. I still kept manga, but like American comics I was done with. And it wasn't until 2001, like the end of 2001, that I came back. So that was 1996 when I left. I came back in about 2001 when my friend was like, you need to read Grant Morrison's X-Men. And I was like, dude, I'm done I don't care about that stuff. But what happened was my ex-wife and I were going through some personal issues, and I felt like I needed to reconnect with my past. So I got out a bunch of my comics that I still kept, and I also got them out and I ended up having to sell some to pay for the divorce, the lawyers, and then other things but it was nice. I was like, oh man, it was like coming back home. I miss these things. I miss these people. I miss these stories. And it wasn't just X-Men, it was everything. DC, Marvel. And then I started getting more and more. My mom and dad, like, my mom's like, do you just want everything back? And I was like, no, I'm not going back to comics. I'm just reading this stuff. Because this is also you and I are living in the glory days of what is known as the collected editions era.
Yeah.
Like back then, even in the early aughts, this stuff was not collected properly unless you were willing to spend a lot of money on Marvel Masterworks.
Mhm.
And I sure as heck was not going to buy any Marvel Essentials, because even then I was above that, because they were the black and
Black
white.
and white, yeah.
Yeah. Not for me, man. My X-Men were in color, and that's the way that I won. And I had the single issue, so I got a bunch out, and then I had to sell a bunch of key issues. But the story that sealed the deal for me, honestly, was the very first issue of Astonishing X-Men. So after Grant Morrison left, I read that first issue of Astonishing X-Men, and it was a throwback to my first issue of Uncanny X-Men of 168. And that was it. That was like, I guess this is it. I'm never leaving again. This is I'm gonna start getting these monthly. And that was what, 2003, I think, 2004. But I never 2004. So that was the one that I was like, okay, I'm going to start getting these books again. I've missed these characters, and this is like coming back home.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much it.
And you're mostly I would say a Marvel fan or a DC fan?
A little bit of both. I like the characters at Marvel. I love the stories at DC. Like, I'm a huge fan of epic stories, but also epic characters. I mean, I have to be a fan of the characters. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to go through some of that junk that I went through in X-Men. Being a fan of X-Men is a love and hate thing, right? Like it's torture sometimes. It's torture. Oh, yeah. It's torture for years sometimes. You're like, why am I still reading this? In the hopes of one good issue, maybe. But then House and Powers of X came out, and I was so happy to read that. It felt good reading X-Men again. It felt good buying X-Men every week again. It was wonderful. So there are moments like that. That's big gaps in between, but still, there are moments like that still come.
Now, how everything started with your YouTube channel? What was were you the one that started the whole channel, or were your friends all together? So let's just do a channel. How everything started?
That was my friend Dan and I, who was on the show. We used to have a podcast together back in the about 2004, 2005, and it lasted until like 2008, whenever I got married. But it started like, you get in your 20s and you're always surrounded by friends. In 30s, people get married, more and more so. People have kids, and you just don't see your friends as much as you used to. And you always have these special group of friends that have something in common with you. Like, it's different than your work buddies. Your work buddies are like, hey, let's go out for beer. Man, wasn't that a tough day at work? Yeah, that day sucked. And you bond over that, right? Like all the gripes that you have at work.
Yeah.
If you're in the sports, you have those type of buddies that are into sports, that you can talk about the different teams and things like that. There are friends that, whatever you're into, but your geek friends, the things that you're into that only they would get, that normal people around the bar are like, what are those idiots talking about? Those are the kind of conversations I miss. I used to work at a comic book store, so those kind of conversations came all the time. And those kind of conversations came on every Wednesday, comic book day. I learned so much through so many of these older people that would come and get books. And that's the first time I read a Duck comic, was when somebody told me to put down the superheroes books when I was working at the comic store and pick up a Duck comic book. But I remember missing that, and now our kids were a little bit older, so I was like, hey, let's do this again, Dan. That was a lot of fun. But instead, let's do a video, because I think, like, I remember telling him, I'm like, I'm pretty sure we missed the mark, because YouTube's kind of its own thing now, but let's do videos, man. I want to eventually talk about these collected editions that I like so much. That took some time, but and then I got my buddy Rob, who's big into video games, and it's all things that I share in common with these people. And then my buddy Tina, who's big into anime. And that's how the four of us kind of came together. My friend Andrew is still working behind the scenes on like producing videos. Like, they don't do much with the channel anymore, and they haven't really in about a year or so, maybe longer. But we're gonna start a second channel to bring it back to that, and they're working on that. I just told them to let me know. But yeah, that's kind of honestly it just started because I started missing conversations with friends that I didn't have, and it was different than the conversations I would have with just regular people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think with the with everything, like a YouTube channel always starts as an experiment. It started with me
Yeah.
the same way. Not necessarily it's like you're looking for something to do. Like you don't want this really to be big. It's just about you expressing yourself and also interacting with your friends. That's how I started my channel.
Hmm.
I never expected that the channel would grew this way, or that I would start talking about this or that, or in a more serious manner. And I know that that your channel has grown. Were you expecting that to happen? Was that the goal for you to grow, or it would just happen just organically?
No, this is funny. So for me, doing these type of things, I grew up making silly videos with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we all wanted to do. And there were a group of 4 of us, and Andrew wanted to be a director, Dan wanted money, Matt wanted fame, and I just wanted to make beer commercials. That was my goal. And I felt like it was the same thing with YouTube. I just wanted to make people laugh and
Mm-hmm.
also educate them in things that I'm passionate about. Whether it was 100, 1,000 people, I don't know. I've no. So to answer your question, no, I had no idea it was going to get like this, and it still blows my mind if I sit back and think about how many subscribers there are and how much love is being shown. Because this late last year, along with a lot of other people,
Mm-hmm.
I lost my job in June,
Yeah.
and it was a horrible experience. I had to let 21 of my employees go first, and then I had to finish out my contract.
Mm-hmm.
And to get my severance package, I had to train someone else how to do my job, and that is really rough.
It is.
And I don't blame them. It's not their fault. So this channel is what kind of kept me going, and I was shown a lot of love then, and I didn't really make that public until this, I think January is when I told people about what happened and how I was going to make this. So it kind of became something that was part-time and fun, kind of became a full-time thing, because
Mm-hmm.
I saw that I could do it full-time. And it wasn't like it wasn't like that's what's the plan. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna be a YouTube. I'm in my 40s, man. The last thing I thought I
Mm-hmm.
was ever going to be was a YouTube influencer, whatever we're called, a YouTube
Yeah.
star, whatever. That's the last thing on my mind. My mind was I want to have something fun on the side, and that was it. And then I put more in love in dedication to the channel, and it just kind of kept growing organically. And then here we are, and it's crazy, but I'm not complaining
Mm-hmm.
because I I'm taking a chance on doing so. I was in IT for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought about that. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, because I'll tell you, the problem was I kept getting these rejection notices, because after being in a certain field for 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find the job again that's going to pay you anywhere near that is impossible.
It is.
You have to be realistic and say, okay, I'm going to have to take a 25% pay cut. And it was less than that. It was like the offers I was getting was like making what I was making 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I told myself, I'm like, wait, if I'm going to kill myself for someone else, and some of that stuff was contract work, and I have kids, I was like, I need insurance.
Yeah.
So if I was going to do contract work and go back in my career 20 years, then I'm just going to do what I love and put everything I have into this and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then I can go back to the regular jobs that I had and at least say I gave it everything I had and I
Mm-hmm.
tried. And the only other thing that worried me was my daughters. Like, every parent wants to be a good example for their kids. So I thought, okay, am I setting a good example for my daughters if I tell them it's okay to quit your normal job and to do what you love for a living?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's irresponsible to me. Like, I don't know if it's a Latin thing. I don't know if it's a man thing. I don't know what it is. But to me, there are
All the above.
priorities. There are priorities in life that we need to live by, and one of them is put food on the table and
Yeah.
keep a roof above your head and keep the lights on for the family. And I was going to be able to do that, but I'm like, is that a good example for my daughter? And then my good friend of mine, who's a Catholic priest, when we grew up doing crazy things together, but he's a priest now. He told me, he was like, dude, what are you talking about? That is the best example you can give your daughters. Like, that if you work hard, if you put everything into it, you can achieve, what you want to do, what you love doing for a living. That is the best examples you can give your daughters. And I kind of, that really put things into perspective for me. And I said, okay, then I'm going to do this full time. And I made that announcement in January.
Yeah.
So it's been great so far. It's been nice. It's been awesome. Totally did not see that happening. Like, if you were to ask me, like, even a year ago when I had a job, like, this was still fun, but I was making videos every day, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna keep it growing. Let's see where it goes. A year ago, I would have been like, what? I'm not gonna quit my job. Well, I didn't quit my job. I'm sorry, I got fired and kind of put here. But I'm not gonna leave my career to go be a YouTube star. Are you crazy? Now, a lot of that has to do with also, the ability to do that also comes from Marvel. We wrote. Have a contract with Marvel to produce 4 videos a month for them, and then that's both fun and also scary because I had to sign an NDA, so it kind of it makes things legit. But I tell you what, though, that was really cool because my buddy Dan, who's on the show with me, he's a lawyer. He's a copyright lawyer, and I was like, okay, let's take a step back, dude. I get to make videos for Marvel. Let's think like we're 13 years old again. I get to make videos for Marvel. You, in a span of a month, had to rewrite a contract for Marvel/Disney. Because this is a first of its kind contract. And what they did was send us a contract for like $1 million commercial company. And I'm like, I'm a guy in my basement. I can't afford the things that they're asking for. It was a copy and paste contract of like 32 pages, and Dan had to rewrite it. And I was like, let's step back and pretend like we're 13 again. How awesome is that? Like, and he was like, you're right. That is really cool. But yeah, it was, it's been great, man. It's been great.
So now, what is the scariest thing that you have to, confront every day? I know, because all the most challenging things that you have every day in your channel.
This is a good question. And when people think about this is something that I have a fear about before I even decided to do this full time, and that's to think about content, right? Okay, people are used to me coming up with content once a day. How do I keep this going without burning out and still being creative and still putting information stuff out there, like, for people to get? How do I keep doing this? And then I was like, wait, we weren't getting any new comics for like 4 months, and I was still able to put content out every day. And that's kind of where a lot of my big segments for the channel came from, like my hidden gems or my top 10. People really like lists like top 10. I don't know whether it's to watch because they're like, oh, I agree with that guy, or that guy's an idiot. This list is stupid. Like, so when I put myself out there, I always say, look, it's my list, man. Please don't yell at me because your one book didn't make it on the list. But that's the scary part that hits me. And then I have to remind myself, I can be creative. I have done this before. And of course, the other thing is, like, there are unexpected things when it comes to YouTube. And one of the things, because I thought, you hit a certain point of YouTube, and I'm like, man, this is looking good. And if it plateaus here, we're going to be great. What happens is that, the YouTube revenue, I don't mind sharing this at all. I think this is common knowledge, but if in case it isn't, the YouTube revenue goes up in your biggest months are going to be October, November, December.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw. And when I made the decision to go full time, it was December. I'm like, I can do this. It's going up. Even if it flattens out here, I'm still putting out the same content. There's no way. And what happened was in January, it drops dramatically. And I didn't see that coming. So I started doing research, and I was like, oh my gosh, it drops bad. So luckily I had already planned to do the whole Patreon video, like
Mm-hmm.
telling people like this is going to be my full-time job, and
Mm-hmm.
we have please check out our Patreon, and that balanced it out. Thank God. Because it's things you don't think about, right? Like I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know that. Like it's something I really should have looked into before. Oh, I'm going to do this full time, but
Mm-hmm.
people don't think about that. The other thing is, last week, every little thing like it is hits you a different way. Like I used to work at hospitals and banks and things like that in IT. The most stressful job I've ever had was being in the operating rooms at hospitals, being the IT there. I would get phone calls, and my wife remembers this,
Mm-hmm.
like where I had to pull over because they're like, "Hey, this machine, this brainwave machine that's keeping this patient alive, is not working. If we don't get it working, he's going to code."
Mm-hmm.
Those were the kind of phone calls I would get when I'm on call. Oh, I wasn't even on call. They just had my number. But anyway, nothing compares to that, to human life.
Yeah.
And your dumb machine that you keep running, keeping someone alive. Nothing will compare to that level of stress. Now it's different kinds of things.
Yeah.
Because if you, yes, it's my own thing, it's my own brand, it's my own business, but I still kind of work for somebody. I still work for YouTube.
Yeah.
So what happened last week was YouTube algorithm was broken, and for some reason people's likes were disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know much about YouTube algorithm, the way it works is it's not just views. Like say you have 100,000 views on a video, whoop-dee, that's awesome, good for you, great. But you have to have the likes to match the views.
Yep.
And it's usually, I think they say 4% is good. 4% is good. So like for 1,000 or 100,000, 4,000 likes, whatever it is. But then that dropped. Like our likes were cut in a third, and I was like, what the heck is going on? So I got because that keeps your channel being promoted to others
Correct.
that don't watch your show, and
Yeah.
that's what you want, right? You want growth.
Visibility. Yeah.
You want to make sure that this video is hitting somebody that normally doesn't watch your channel, is not a subscriber, and goes, huh? Hey guys, that guy actually he's pretty funny, or he's knowledgeable, or he's an idiot. I'm gonna watch all his top 10 list so I can make fun of him. But that's what you want. And
Mm-hmm.
if that is broken, then your videos don't get promoted. Your videos are just going to keep being viewed by the people that are already subscribed to you,
Yeah.
which is great. I love my viewers, but
Mm-hmm.
you also want to keep growing because this is now my livelihood. So,
Correct.
man, in 2 days, I'm talking to YouTube through chat because the emails don't work that well. And they're like, we're going to open up a case. Like that's what it was. They refused to open up a case. They're like, we don't see anything wrong. And I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm watching my views. I even show them documented pictures. I'm like, I'm watching my likes disappear. Like when this video finished, we did a live show, my wife and I, every Saturday, and we
Mm-hmm.
had over 200 likes. I am looking at it right now, and I took pictures. It's down to 148. I
Mm-hmm.
said something happened. I'm like, one or two I get, maybe even 10, but this is over 50 likes that just disappeared for no reason.
Yeah.
So they were like, we don't see anything wrong on our end. I had to talk to 3 different people. Finally, somebody was like, maybe something is going on because I kind of see something up. So let me open up a case for you. They open up a case, but it's that kind of stuff that you have to deal with
Yeah.
now. And everybody has something to deal with at their own job, right? Whether you own your own business or whether you work for somebody, your computer's not working. Or if you're like in the recycling business, you own your own business and one of your trucks breaks down.
Mm-hmm.
It's that, I still think it's that level of stress, but it's different now.
It is
Now
different.
I have to deal with numbers and analytics and things like that. But my wife, who's been really the rock and everything behind all this,
Mm-hmm.
always reminds me, like, take a step back,
Mm-hmm.
and you make videos for Marvel and you make people happy. And yeah,
Yeah, that's a good
it's
way to
wonderful.
put it. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I would say I feel the same way as you do. I like 2 years ago, I decided to go on this full time to do like my content creation full time. Even though I have a small channel, it was just
Mhm.
experimentation. And at the beginning, when you're ready to jump, I came from a financial world where I was making good money,
Oh,
and
yeah.
even though when I decided to quit, well, I was always complaining. I was making content, but I was always complaining about my life in this job that I had or everything that happened. And my wife, one day, she just got tired of hearing me always complaining. And she said, why don't you just simply quit and do this full time and see how it goes? Try for a year. So I took her, actually, when she said it, it kind of clicked on me and I said, let's just do it. She's kind of giving me the green light, so let's do it. So that's what I did, and I would say that in the beginning, the scariest thing was, it's like before you get into it, you're happy and excited, but
Oh yeah, of course.
but
Of
once
course.
you're out of work, I say goodbye to all my coworkers, everybody that was on my company, the CEO. I talked to everyone; everyone was excited for me. But of course, the next day, it's like, what am I supposed to do now? Now I have to come up with content almost every day. And that's something that is still up to this day is challenging, because in the beginning you make a lot of mistakes. You're trying to find content. Last year was terrible for most people, but also was a year of experimentation. You're experimenting with a lot of things in content in your channel. Some things work, some things don't work. But it's always that, trying to keep up with the numbers, try to keep up with YouTube algorithm, which I think is the hardest thing, as you mentioned. It's always something with YouTube. They're always changing the algorithm. They're always changing things around. And sometimes it's really challenging because you got to keep up with that. At the same time, you have to create content. And I can say it's not as simple. It is really challenging, and definitely it's scary because you don't know. YouTube is strong as it is, but you don't know if it's going to stand here forever. So it's something that is really always there in the back of your mind, because you, like you said, you left everything behind, a good job, or in this case, you were let go, like many people. And in my case, I knew that I always could go back to the company, because they told me if you needed to come back, you can come back. But last year, with everything that happened, they pretty much went bankrupt. So it's not like I have a way to go back. So I would say that that's the scariest thing. Now, let me ask you this. Now, what is the thing that you love the most? And now we talk about the things that they're more scary. But what are the things that you love the most about doing what you do now?
I know it's not. It's a podcast. I was going to show you. Getting pictures from 12-year-old kids, like writing in the back, like, "You're my favorite YouTuber," or drawing like Wolverine and things like that. That brings me a lot of happiness, I think. But I'll be honest with you. The most important thing to me that I've gotten are the emails or comments, like, whenever I have this segment on my channel, and it's part of the whole Marvel deal, that I get breaking news about upcoming books or upcoming reprints, and I remember that feeling of, like, looking at a solicitation and when I was I'm still on the other side, but like when I didn't know before anybody else, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's awesome! I cannot wait for November. It can't come fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I've told that story when that's the story behind the suit. Like, I found out after a meeting I was getting fired, so I came home instead of going out and drinking, and I made a video about the upcoming Marvel books, because I remember that feeling of, like, hope. Like, I'm like, okay, my day has been kind of really crappy. I just found out I lost my job. I had to let 21 of my employees go. Maybe I can make someone else's day better. Yeah. So I made that video, and it was huge. It was huge. It was like 10 Marvel books. I can't remember, but it was the first time I wore the suit. And it kind of became a thing that I wore it, but I didn't tell anybody the story about it until this past January.
Yes.
But the comments that I would get were that mean the world to me, are like, somebody with cancer, or somebody that lost a family member, or somebody that had that has thought about ending things, and now they have something to look forward to. Yeah. And I don't care how this sounds to anybody that doesn't understand the concept and the importance of comics, and how weird it must sound to somebody that doesn't understand, like, oh well, somebody's going to commit suicide if that book doesn't come out, or whatever. As long as it keeps somebody going, that's all that matters to me. Like, whatever that may be, whether it's a game a year from now, or whether it's a movie a year from now, so those messages mean the world to me. And of course, I always, I've developed some relationships through there just by emailing some people back. And it's weird, man, because I never thought that I would be in a position like that. And I've shared those kind of news with David, to let him know, like, these things are important to a lot of people, and it helps a lot of people. So I think that's probably my favorite thing about this. It's all I guess, the happiness. Yes, there's going to be people that gripe, like, oh, why are they choosing this book to reprint or whatever? You're always going to get that.
Mm-hmm.
But I stopped focusing on all that stuff a long time ago. I focus on the good emails and the comments that, how much happy, like, people are like in tears. See, there were like or people that are like, I had to pull my car over when I was listening to this band. I had to scream. This is amazing. That it's like Ultimate Spider-Man. And I don't care, it's like, it's a book that I really didn't mean much to me, but I know the importance of it to a lot of people.
To someone, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's the great thing about comics is that, like you said, they mean a lot to different people. And the beauty of it is that there's so many stories that we can all relate to. Like, for example, in my case, like you mentioned, reading Condorito. I read Condorito when I was a kid in Mexico. So I know the stories. And growing up in Mexico, I had the opportunity to read a lot of comics. Right next to the United States, so we get the opportunity to get also American comics. Yeah. But the thing is that those stories, they really are part of our, not only our childhood, but also they mean a lot because of the values, because of the stories, because you feel like you're connected to these characters. Like you were saying about the X-Men, that it's like a soap opera, like a telenovela. You're always there, even though they're always messed up. There are always a lot of stuff that you really can be dissatisfied with the story. You still want to know what's going on with their lives, and you stuck with them for years. And regardless, you really cheer up when they are winning, but also you suffer with them when they're like going through the hard times or the bad writing or the bad stories, but you still keep up because you're loyal to them. And I think there's a lot of loyalty. And like you're saying, I think the most important thing is about hope. And I think that's what you bring to your viewers with your channel is you bring hope. It might not be the solution to their problems, but at least it gives them a little bit of hope in the middle of their day. And I feel that that's the best part of it. Now with all the things that are happening now with the industry, now getting into the comic part, talking about comics, how do you feel about the industry right now? And of course, we had a lot of changes with the pandemic. There's now cons right now, so there's not like we can go places. And I know a lot of people have a waiting for that to happen. But what do you think about the state of it, of the industry as a whole? Do you think it's healthy? Do you think it's going through hard times? What do you think?
I know that 2020 was one of the biggest years for graphic novels. Like, just whether it was people at home buying books, because they're bored, or people at home wanting to relive their childhood, or new people getting new books. It's huge. It blew up. And the books that they keep selling out, it's kind of crazy. So I think the industry is doing well, and maybe they're looking at different ways of producing comics, because comics are getting expensive. I mean, there was a rumor that DC wanted to start doing $5-6 comics, and if you think about that, that's a lot of money for a kid. I mean, and I know I say kid, I still have hopes that kids buy comics, but I feel like a lot of it has to change, and I hate fighting change, because I'm an old man at heart. I like physical media. I like physical video games. I like physical movies. Yeah. But in reality, we're living in the last. I think it's a strong statement to make, but I think it's accurate that this is the last generation of physical media for movies and video games. Like the PlayStation, when the PlayStation 6 gets announced, it will not have a slot for your physical medium. Same thing with the Xbox. I mean, we already have a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox without a CD drive. They're testing the waters. Of course. Why would you not? You're going to save a lot of money without physically make. I think there will always be small party companies that make physical media, but it's not. I think most of now with internet speed getting faster everywhere, what kid wants to go to Walmart to go buy a video game when he can just download it day of
Yeah.
and wait a couple
Day
hours
one.
to install?
Mm-hmm.
So I think about that in comic books, like what's going to happen, and comic books will always. I think comic books will remain probably the last physical things to go away. They'll put up a fight, and I mean the sales of these books mean that some aspect of this is working. Maybe because book sales are not that affected by digital sales.
No.
Right. So I think that's what it is, like the pure form of opening one of these things up and reading it, not affected by now single issues I think have been affected. And if they see that, we might come to the day of, okay, well, instead of releasing a comic book, which sucks because there's a lot of people that build their channels on CGC and weekly comic books, and it's a lot harder to put a tablet in a CGC slab, or
Mm-hmm.
So I think we may see the time here in the next couple of years of digital only releases for new books.
New books, yeah.
Yeah, new comics, and then we'll get a physical collection. That's the way I see it going. Your weekly comic books are going to be digital, and then if you're interested in the collection, then we'll come out with a hardcover, trade paperback, or an omnibus of it. Because they've kind of done that already a little bit with some of digital only books or digital only comics that are being printed in trade paperback or in hardcover collection. So it's not like they haven't done it before.
No.
But eventually it will be your Batman and Superman and X-Men one day will probably be digital.
Yeah. That seems to be the future. In my case, for example, I'm a big fan of digital comics. I read a lot of digital comics. And I also recommend that to readers, particularly those who had never read these stories. Always recommend try the digital first and see if you like it. And if you like it, then you can get the collected edition, whether it's hardcover or softcover. So I think that the option is there. To me, it's always about for people. The recommendation is for people to read comics regardless, whatever the format. Of course, I do love the hardcovers because I think I started with softcovers, but I've been changing to hardcovers because I love the format mostly for collectible purposes, and I love sometimes just the fact of grabbing a book and just opening it. I think it's just the fact of that I think the feel that we had growing up. But I think for simplicity, and I've been moving into more a digital realm. I know why some people still reluctant to move there, and I'm okay with that. But like you said, I do believe that it's going to be the last bastion of digital format, the digital media, because I feel that in this case with movies, it's a different way. Movies you can have it digitally, or even video games. We have been prompted to do it before. I think we have been trained to do it. The way they're doing it. With comics, it's a totally different thing. And I feel that we are going to, like you said, we're going to see more of that digital media coming our way in the next couple of years. But I still think that a lot of people are still going to be reluctant to move that in that direction unless they're forced to. Now, one thing that surprised me now, it's like, I remember a few years back, and as you know, like omnibuses are right now like the hot items that everyone wants and the absolutes and all of that. But I remember a few years back where you could actually purchase an omnibus. It could stay there on cheap graphic novels or in stock trades for months.
Yeah.
And I used to wait till the end of the year for the special sales or whatever when they discounted even more. So I could have just wait for 6 months and get me an omnibus because it was discounted even more. And then you got some special offers or whatever. And I think that was the thing. But nowadays it's like if you snooze, you lose. So you better just jump on it the same day, and because everyone is there and they just sell out really quick. What do you think about that? Do you think it's I don't know. It's strange because to me, like some of these omnibuses, nobody wanted them on the first release, and now everyone wants to have them. And I think you have been, you and many other YouTubers are reviewing these books have been a big part of it too, because you're promoting it to the point where people get really excited for it. Like, okay, I need it. I need it in my life, even though I never read it, but I want to have it because Omar recommended it or this other guy recommended it and I trust their word. What do you think about that?
So it has a lot of factors going into it. You were what was your previous job? You were in the business of
Finances. Yeah.
finances. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's talk about numbers then.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's say you have a YouTube influencer that works out of his basement named the Uncanny Omar, and he's telling you that if you print all these books, people will buy them. And then you see that, you're like, oh man, this guy's kind of right. Well, let's go ahead and change the formula up. And I'm not saying that's what happened,
Mhm.
but back I always joke on my channel that there was the before Omar age and then the after
After
Omar
Omar
age.
age, yeah.
Before Omar age, they were printing, 2 omnis a month, probably 2 omnis a month. We get 1 or 2 reprints a year.
Yeah.
They've seen the potential since then of like, oh, well, let's do 7 omnis a month, 2 reprints a month, 1 or 2 reprints a month. People aren't getting everything. Right, because at one time I think, and I'll never tell David this, but because this is just me assuming. I think they thought that these books were like their Marvel masterworks. Everybody, you and I, the people that are getting the books are getting every single one of them. What they never took into account is that, oh no, wait, there are people that just like Spider-Man, or there are people that just like X-Men, and even the people that like X-Men aren't getting Excalibur and New Mutants. They're just getting X-Men. Let's start changing our strategy and market it that way. Market it like a monthly comic book. Get the people that only want X-Men to buy X-Men. So that's one thing, right? That plays heavily into what I'm going to say. I haven't even shared this on my channel, but this is just my thoughts. But so you're getting Omar's initial thoughts here. Second thing is that you and I both remember the time when D-Header, there's a gentleman named D-Header on eBay that sold books for $25 to $30. And to us, that was huge.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like 25, 30. That's how much I paid for Man-Thing. That's how much I paid for Howard the Duck. Yeah, right. You remember that.
Yes.
And, okay, so then you have to think logistically, like financial wise, like how much was he paying? Because he was getting them at whatever Diamond liquidated prices were. And Diamond liquidated prices are insane. Why were they liquidated to begin with? Well, that's to make room for more stock.
Mm-hmm.
But that was also the time when you were only having 1 or 2 omnis a month, meaning that you still have the exact same amount of space at a warehouse and the printer, but now you have 4 times the amount of titles. And if you have the same space, you have to print low. And the other thing is, if you print low, you're not going to have liquidated prices. And that's what you want, right? You want to go into a meeting pull down. I'm sorry, this is a podcast. I'm doing a visual thing. You want to pull down your graphs and be like, look at the sales. Look what was liquidated. Who's the man? That's right.
Yes.
And that's part of it. They're printing, basing it more closer to what the pre-orders are than they ever have. So that's a lot of the not problem. Good for them as a business because they're already moving on.
Yes.
Right? Hey, we did our job. We printed and met all the orders of War of the Realms. And then from a consumer's perspective, I didn't even see that book go on sale. What are you talking about? It was gone in 30 minutes. From a business perspective, they're like, well, you all pre-ordered 1,000 copies. We printed 2,000. The book market got another 1,500. We're moving on to because they're always thinking 7-8 months ahead of time. So they're already thinking about something else. They have forgotten long. It's not until some crazy dude on YouTube making videos like, hey, this is out of print, we need it back, that they even thought about reprinting some of these things.
Yeah.
And that is the formula that kind of all works and how it's working now. They don't want any books at Ollie's. They don't want any books at D-Header anymore. They don't want liquidated prices. They're still coming. There are books that, you look at the sales of Moon Knight and you're like, dang, we're probably not going to get a volume 2. And that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at books like, no kidding, Infinity Gauntlet reprint or War of the Realms or Uncanny X-Men Volume 2 and more than likely those will get restocked, and they sold so well that they're gone. But I'll use X of Swords as a prime example. X of Swords, that was a, what is it called? The Perfect Storm.
Mm-hmm.
X of Swords was the Perfect Storm. It was not solicited as an X-Men oversized hardcover. They changed the final cutoff date because they added issues. So the people that initially added the book, like pre-orders, from retailers, from places like In Stock Trades, Cheap Graphic Novels, Tales of Wonder, DCBS. They never shifted the change of their pre-orders. They left the same number. And places like the book market, they already have an algorithm built. They have already ordered it based on what other volumes of X-Men have sold. They don't work the same. That's why I always say use Amazon as a last resort as pre-orders, because you're not guaranteed a book because the algorithm didn't call to order you a book. If you order from a retailer or your comic book store or Cheap Graphic Novels or I'm sorry, pre-order, you're guaranteed that book more than likely, unless something happens to Diamond. So all of that factors into this, and Bob's your uncle, as my wife says. That's the secret to what's happening now. And there's also something I found out. Like, there's a game that some small retailers, like, you can have a Diamond account. I have a Diamond account, right? So anybody can have a Diamond account. I think you have to spend $450 a month or something like that. But the key is say you're a seller, right? And I've seen this happen, but there's nothing anybody can do. So you've got the two biggest people in the game already put their order in, right? At Diamond, you can see how many books are left. So let's say Cheap Graphic Novels and In Stock Trades have already ordered all their stock for X of Swords, right? You can see that Diamond has 50 copies left. You see that Cheap Graphic Novels is completely out of X of Swords. You, as a business, order 50 copies. You wait until In Stock Trades is out of print or completely gone. They can't order anymore. It's gone. You wait until Amazon is completely, and then you put your books on eBay and sell them for however much you want to. And that's part of all of this. That's part of the gamble in all of this, man. And there's nothing anybody can do about that. There's nothing Marvel can do, because that's not really cheating the system.
No.
But it sucks, right? Because as a consumer, you want your book. You don't want to pay escalated prices. But I mean, those people are on eBay for a reason, and they get, It's all, it was me doing a lot of research this past, because I was tired of getting, like, my, I felt so bad for a lot of my viewers. I was like, let me find out what's going on. So I got together with Diamond. I got together with Marvel, Dark Horse, DC was
IDW.
Useless. They didn't really email me back, but IDW, in the way that how these things work. And I found out that the biggest thing is that the back order system's broken. So nobody used it anymore. I got a hold of Cheap Graphic Novels and In Stock Trades. Nobody uses the back up system. So if you ran out of a book, X of Swords, for example, they never bothered putting in another order with Diamond, because that system was broken. And it was a joke through the community, through the retailer community, that the system was broken. So why would you put in another order? They're not letting Marvel know. So if Marvel doesn't know, they had no idea that these books needed to be reprinted. Now they have some crazy dude on YouTube telling him that it needs to be reprinted. And do you go on that guy's word, or do you actually see the data? Now I'm hoping that all of this changes when they get over to PRH. People Random House, they have a different system. So we'll see. I mean, all of that's going to change anyway. Just based on moving from Diamond over to another distribution center.
Yeah, because it's kind of it's been a bit frustrating, because trying to get, and this is the thing, this is the part of what I appreciate your videos, where you talk about the upcoming releases, and you talk about also you make your top 10 lists and all of that, because it really helps, at least I think, viewers and us to really kind of determine or make our own lists of things that we need to concentrate on. The things that, okay, I need to get this book, I need to get this book, I need to pre-order this, or I need to wait until it comes out. So it really helps, because now it's just it's the Wild West, technically. Whatever, if you are not ready for the pre-order as soon as it comes out, then you're out of luck. And it's becoming harder and harder. Like, every month, like, I also, my channel, I make my top 10. It's even hard for me to really determine which are the top 10, because there's so many stories, there's so many collections coming out, and they're all good. And you would be there, like, to me, it's like I have to make a top 50 or something like that.
I do top 10 because it's difficult. It's
Yeah.
not easy. And then I always get comments, why didn't this make the list? Or and some people are really sweet. They're like, I'm surprised this didn't make it.
Hmm.
But it's just based on me though, like what I would get. Like, and that's the way I put myself, like, okay, I'm limited to a budget. I can only get 10 books. These are the books I'm gonna get. Or these are books I'm gonna definitely recommend. I don't want any. I've recommended Usagi Yojimbo. Look at that nightmare. Usagi Yojimbo Volume 1 Saga hardcover. And that became a nightmare because what happened was nobody saw this coming. Diamond didn't get any copies. Diamond got 2 copies. Like Usagi Volume 9 right now has become a nightmare to me. It's out. Volume 9 is out and I don't have it. And I'm like, where am I going to get it? The 2 people that I normally get my books through have 1 copy each and it's for themselves. And I don't blame them. But me, I talked to Dark Horse and they're like, we have no idea what's going on. Maybe the book market will get some more. I mean, we're talking 1,500 copies, right? So it's not a lot in the long scheme of things, especially now that you have more and more people getting these books. But I'm like, I don't have a volume 9, but volume 1 was so, like, all the pre-orders that went in through Diamond were not met. And that sucks. That is, there's going to be fingers pointed, right? There's going to be like, well, it wasn't us, it's Dark Horse. Well, Dark Horse is going to be like,
It was Diamond.
Diamond didn't put the orders in. Diamond's going to be like, well, you didn't pre-order. And they can't say anything to the retailers because the retailers already put the pre-orders in. They didn't meet. And the other, there's another one that's going on right now with Witchblade. Witchblade hardcover volume 2 is out. Yeah, it's out, but Diamond didn't get that many. Like, so it's crazy. So now people are having to resort to Amazon, where it used to be a joke. Amazon's like the last resort, and now people are like, well, I guess I better get my Dark Horse or Image book through Amazon because they actually seem to meet the
deadline.
Yeah, so that to me is crazy, man.
So what do you do now? Now just moving from comics, what are you doing your time off? Of course, you know, you invest a lot of time into the channel, into everything you do. What is it that you normally do in order just to kill time, just to unwind?
Dude. I am very blessed. My daughters are home with me, so I feel like they're my coworkers. That's gonna go away when they go back to school in this next school year. I'm gonna miss them. I am very close to them, so we go for walks. But my favorite thing to do, dude, honestly, is to play video games with my kids. Like I used to read comics for fun, and I still do. But now it's playing video games for fun because it's something I'm not bringing to the channel. It's something I can separate because I've always had different hobbies. I've collected toys, I've collected video games, I've collected movies, books. So I've always had a hobby to fall back on. And if ever this was supposed to be my become my full-time thing, then I can fall back on another hobby. And I have so many games I haven't even opened, and we're going through a bunch of games together. So it's a lot of fun. That's what I do. I hang out with my family because, you know, we're still playing it safe here with the pandemic. My wife and I both got the shot. My family all have their shots. So slowly, we're trying to get together with some friends. Nothing like crazy like it used to be, but, you know, yeah, that's kind of what I do. I like to just hang around my kids and play video games.
Yeah. And now let me ask you one thing. You almost coming to the end of the podcast, but
sure.
The thing is this, you know, a lot of people are coming into this hobby as you mentioned. A lot of people are new to it. I think a lot of people discover the hobby of, you know, the hardcover collectibles and all of that. I think through your channel, through many channels in YouTube as well. So a lot of people are really now, and that's the reason why these books are selling so quick. What would be your advice to someone that it's a newcomer or they trying to build a collection and it might seem overwhelming at first, and then they see, for example, your collection, other people's collection, and they feel like, oh, I cannot really match that. What would be your advice to them now they're starting?
My advice to anybody is always buy what you love. Like, don't buy things because somebody on YouTube or on Instagram or on Twitter, on Facebook tell you to buy it. Buy what you like. You know, I have the hardest time when people ask me, like, can you do like your top 10 X-Men stories or where new readers can get started? And I'm starting that finally. It's literally taken me 2.5 years to finally say, okay, I think I can do it and be comfortable making videos like that. Because I hate to say, okay, well, I definitely suggest you read X-Men God Loves Man Kills, and then somebody hates that story. And then they're like, well, I'm never reading X-Men again. That guy's an idiot. But my suggestion is always the same. It's, buy what you love. Don't buy everything. Don't buy these things to flip later. That's, don't come into this with a collector's mentality of owning everything. Come into this, because you actually enjoy and find some enjoyment out of these stories, that you're going to break these books up. Open the books, let them breathe. There's my suggestion. Don't just keep them on the shelf all sealed.
Okay. And one more question. Are you reading right now anything new, any of the new comics or new comic stories that you would recommend to anyone? For example, like any brand new story that you just discover and you think is amazing, or you think is worth noting? Any recommendations for someone?
I really have been enjoying The Immortal Hulk. And that's not that new.
Uh-huh.
I have been really enjoying Something is Killing the Children.
Okay.
That has been a solid read. The Once in Future was pretty good. It kind of slowed down a little bit, but I heard that series is getting an oversized hardcover. So hey, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hellions,
Hellions.
for a guy that's been reading X-Men for over 35 years, Hellions has been a lot of fun. And I'm trying to think, there's a couple of other series that I keep up with monthly, and that's the only time I read digitally. It's when through Comixology or the Marvel app. What is the run that I'm really liking? I really like Donny Cates' run on Thor. It's been a lot of fun.
Okay. Well, I want to say to you, Omar, thank you very much for taking the time for the podcast.
Of course.
I know it's I know you're busy. I know you have a lot of stuff to do, but you took the time to do this, and I really appreciate that. Definitely, I admire you for what you're doing, and I love your content. I love the channel. I think the channel continues to grow, and I think
Thank you.
The best part of it is that I feel like I mentioned earlier, you have passion, and that passion you can feel it. I think you can feel that passion through in this case through the camera, through all of that. I love when you review books. I love when you talk about the books, about the story of the books, and definitely you have become a source for me of information too. So every time there is something new coming out, I have to go to you because I know you have the information and you talk about the comics, and I really
Thanks,
love that.
man. Thank you. Seriously, that means a lot. Seriously.
Yeah. But I want to say to all of you, if you have never, I would say if you are listening to this podcast, if you have never ever, which is a surprise, ever heard of Omar, the Uncanny Omar, then definitely you need to pay attention. I will have the links in the description. Whether you're watching this on YouTube or whether you are listening on the different platforms, you'll have the link there. Follow him. He's a good guy. He has a lot of information. He loves comics, and definitely I don't know anyone else in YouTube right now that can provide as much good content as he does for comics. So I want to say to all of you, thank you for listening. Again, Omar, thank you for participating on the podcast, and to all of you,
having me.
Yeah. And don't forget, if you're watching this on YouTube, to like, to comment, and to subscribe to the channel. Also, follow us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. The links are down below. And also consider supporting the channel, whether it's JP Reviews or Age of Heroes podcast through Patreon. My friends, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. God bless. And we will talk to you again. Bye-bye.